It's an absolute pleasure to be with you today. And I basically have been writing a book for 3.5 years about the transformation of self image through the hero's journey from a soulful perspective. So I have been through the ringer emotionally because of all of what I put onto myself, as we often do, to get it perfect. And it wasn't even about perfection, but it was just about letting other people's perspective of what I was trying to do interfere with what I'm doing. And I share that especially in relation to where we're going to go tonight, because it's so easy for somebody else to make opinions and judgments and to cast those upon us, and then we have to choose what we're going to do with those. Because the thing that I would love for each of us to really become mindful of is the fact that no one can see our vision until we bring it into fruition. So it's very much an opportunity for us to realize that they're going to judge us, especially if what is in our heart really calls us to become more than where we started. Even if we still are where we started, the hero's journey really takes us out of the comfort zone of the known into the liminal phase of change, where we no longer are who we were and yet we're not yet who we're becoming, in order to then go through the darkest pits of our own emotional states that are when we're facing things that need to be faced, and in that process then can embody a new energetic signature to then contribute the wisdom that we gained through the mess that helped us find the message. So I sit before you not in any way as better than anyone, and I say that only because we live in a world where it's so guru-esque. And it's not to say that you're putting me on that pedestal, but it is to just simply say that whoever is presenting, they may have climbed a few steps higher in the path of ascension, but it's so important for us all to realize that no one is better than us. And that even the people that feel like they need to make us feel inferior for the sake of their own ego, we really have to understand that they're only doing it because it's a power play. And especially during the times that we're in right now, collectively, and then also moving into the holidays, if you do have an opportunity to get together with the people you were born to or the people that you choose to belong to, there's going to be personality clashes, and there's going to be people that say, why are you doing what you're doing? It's not good enough. And Lord knows I'm currently working as a grocery store clerk, and I'm on the front lines, and I do it. And I started in March after a real breakdown, really. And it was the lowest point in my entire life, where I finally just said, maybe you guys are right, and I gave up on myself in a way. And I've had quite the last year, and got checked into a mental health system last October, and that experience of really giving my power away and then really coming to understand that no doctor knows better than I do or you do. It's really about taking a stand for personal sovereignty. And so this message today is to say that I've been a hot mess, and I at times still am, and you may feel the same way, and it's really an opportunity to judge ourselves less. I feel like all of why I did this on a whiteboard instead of having the PowerPoint presentation to show I've actually been a certified coach, teacher, speaker for nearly 10 years and have learned from some of the greatest leaders of our times. And all of that, I was swimming at a very high level as a guppy that was swimming amongst whales and sharks. And so that is relevant to tonight, because you may too feel that you're swimming amongst whales and sharks and fellow guppies and other fish. And it's true. But it's also about realizing that no one is bigger, no one is better. And it's really an opportunity to call our power back. It's an opportunity to say we don't have to have arrived and the crazy thing about the hero's journey is that we may start at home and end in the same location, but we come back with new eyes to see it for the first time because we've changed. And so what I wanted to do tonight was really offer you a teaching that I've assembled, which is I refer to as the high rise of emotional awareness. And so I also wrote it on another bulletin board or another whiteboard. But this one is actually based on a teaching from Abraham, who is the Consciousness Esther Hicks channels. And it's you can look it up, it's called the Emotional Guidance System. And basically there's 22 different levels of emotion. And within those 22 different levels of emotion, we have an upward spiral of emotion that are actually emotional states, compared to the lower spectrum that really take us down. And if we can come to understand that boredom is the tipping point, if we can move out of boredom into being content, that really takes us into the realm of being able to reach higher levels. And if we stay at boredom, we oftentimes fall down faster. So there's an acronym that in the process of writing this book, and we'll keep this handy, but in the process of writing this book, I came up with an acronym for full. Well, I've got an acronym for peaceful as well, and for inner, which is where the peaceful inner warrior formula comes from. Because for me, peace is about passion, enthusiasm, authenticity, clarity, and encouragement. And full is what's behind me that I wanted to share with you tonight. And if you're interested in going further into what it means to be a peaceful inner warrior, there's a special practice that's really about honoring your whole self rather than just pieces of it. And so it's not just the physical, it's not just the spiritual, it's not just the mental, it's all of it. So the what are you full of was where I really wanted to start. It's about finding your tribe. And it's about realizing that as you come together with other people who may not be as similar to you as what makes them or you feel comfortable, it's about understanding that when we're with those people that don't understand us and that have so many judgments about us, we don't necessarily have to be around them a lot. And we can really take our power back by understanding that we get to choose how much time we spend with other people. And there are uplifters and there are energy drainers, energy vampires. So when you find yourself feeling upset, or when you're finding yourself in that downward spiral of emotions that you can see, which starts at boredom and goes down to pessimism, frustration, irritation, impatience, overwhelm, disappointment, doubt, worry, blame, discouragement, anger, revenge, hatred or rage, jealousy, insecurity, guilt, unworthiness, fear, grief, depression, despair, powerlessness. We have to understand that it's very heavy, these emotions. And emotions are energies in motion. And our feelings are how we interpret those energies in motion. And energy is meant to move, which is why in the full formula, it's about letting go of our attachment to the not now moments where we have trapped emotions that needed to move, but we didn't know how to move them because we're not taught how to be comfortable with our own emotional states. We're taught to be afraid of them. We're taught to judge them. We're not meant to feel anger, and it's not ladylike, or it's not a good thing, or it can be dangerous to be all of these emotions. And it's just to realize that our feelings are the interpretation of those emotions that are showing up when they do because they're meant to be let go of. We need to move those emotions, but in order to do that, we have to simply be familiar with them and to know that if you can go down so easy from one emotional state to the next, you can also go up. And gratitude is a great elevator. So when you find yourself in those moments where emotions are showing up and you do find yourself spiraling down, you can really use gratitude of calling yourself back present, which is why I wanted to share a couple breathing exercises just to really help you call yourself back to your soul speak, or how your soul speaks to you. Because your breath is the first thing that you do and the last thing that you do. And if you actually learn how to consciously pay attention to your breath, then you'll be able to sit with those emotions and move them easier and more fluidly, because then you're actually in the moment compared to the not now moments. Now, you can also have the experience of reaching contentment, and then hopefulness, optimism, positive expectation or belief, enthusiasm, eagerness, happiness, passion, love, peace, joy, empowerment, knowledge, freedom. And those states are higher level because it's not even about an emotion that's contained or embodied in that space of the now moment that oftentimes we project into the past or the future, which has no power. And when we place our power or attention into the not now, we have no power. So it's very important for us to understand that our emotions are meant to be maneuvered one step at a time. So instead of putting so much pressure on ourselves to go from zero to hero, it's about saying, where am I at right now? And this is a very simple tool to really just check yourself before you wreck yourself. So that you can really say, okay, you know what? I'm really frustrated right now in this moment. And if I could just feel a little bit pessimistic about the situation that I'm finding myself in, that I'm frustrated about, then maybe I can get to just being bored and just say, you know what, I'm done with this for today. And in that done moment, then we feel pretty content, because what we realize and what we can do if we're consciously participating in the process is to actually separate whatever emotion was from the past and call it present. And if we detach from the thing that was frustrating us and we call ourselves present and we breathe through the moment, then we can actually become hopeful about feeling better. And because we have begun to actually intentionally call ourselves present with our breath, as one example, as a tool, and also conscious emotion management and awareness, then we can call ourselves into a more optimistic state and to become more hopeful and expect good things. And then we have to look at that word belief and simply say, what is it? What is a belief? If not simply a familiar idea that has become more familiar than a different one, and so then we have come to trust it and give it our power, which is then where we have to become very mindful of, if we're placing our power into an idea that's outside of ourselves, we can then spin very fast because we have no control over anything outside of ourselves. So if we can call ourselves present and we can bring ourselves into the awareness of where we are, we're going to be able to reach an enthusiastic space more readily, because then we can start working with the tools that are available to us in the moment that previously we were blind to. Because if you actually were to play Scrabble and you were to look at the words creative and reactive, you would use the same letters and the score would be different, and your experience of the outcome would be very different too. Because reaction is to do the same thing that we have in the past in the present moment. So somebody made you upset, and then you got and then you reacted, and then you got a similar outcome to what you did the last time. And even if that reaction was uncomfortable and not helpful the last time, oftentimes we go there because it's most familiar, and we have become familiar, and that gives us the feeling of trust. And trust is ultimately what we're not going to have in ourselves if we don't know how to actually work with our emotions. And then that even brings into the picture the word ourselves. And so I want you, just if you're taking notes, to write down C-E-L-L -F, because that's your real self. And you have to understand that you are, and you are the container for your soul. And regardless of your faith foundation, it's an opportunity to simply say, what if you were light? What if we're all light, and information is light, and everything is light? And the only thing that is scary is when the light is blocked and then the shadows emerge. And so if we think about it from that perspective, and we think of ourselves as a container of cells, the ultimate petri dish, so to speak, you can look at the F and choose whether you are going to fill it with fear, which would be the downward spiral, or whether you're going to fill it with faith. And faith is the opportunity to believe in something greater than yourself, to give yourself the opportunity to trust in something that cannot be seen or proven, but that you know in your heart of hearts because you have learned to trust yourself. Whereas fear, as many of you have heard from Wayne Dyer and whoever else it's been misattributed to, fear is false evidence appearing real. In that moment, it feels very real. Disappointment feels like we're never going to have that opportunity again. But what if everything is happening for us and nothing is happening to us? And everything is an opportunity for us to say, hey, that closed door that slammed in our face and even broke our nose or a nail, that closed door was the only way that the universe could deliver something better to us. So if we can look at our circumstances in a very different way and we can say, hey, we are where we are and we're okay with that because we know how to move ourselves up one emotional state faster at a time, we really take our power back. And where we take that power is back into the present moment. If we love what arises, would it be helpful if I actually wrote these in? So, love what arises. Our emotions, if you think about your emotions as toxic barrels, when they're in the downward spiral, what the toxic barrel theory is essentially is that every time we've been through something in our past and that we didn't deal with, it became like a toxic barrel that we threw over the side of the ocean of ourselves and we let it go. And as it was down there, it got hit by a few rocks and dinged and danged and little leaks came out. But like germ theory says, it's like, which is very much the model that we're working with societally. Germ theory is about the fish. If you've got a healthy fish in a sick tank, the fish has to adapt. Whereas this is really about helping us it's about correcting the ocean so that we can take those toxic barrels out of where they used to leak and slowly poison us, and instead we actually can process them. So we understand that when an emotion comes up, it's not just about that moment, it's about everything and all of the momentum that comes with it that we didn't deal with before, that became like toxic barrels that have been leaching into this system of us. And if you look at the acronym for system, it's systems are designed to save yourself significant time, energy, and money. So if you look at yourself as a system that's very complex and comprehensive and fully has everything it needs within it, if we understand that when we pull out those emotions, the way that we can do that is by actually feeling what we're feeling instead of fearing it. And when we can feel the feelings that show up, we stop being scared of them and then can actually turn them into sacred experiences that teach us about where we give our power away, like we may do when somebody projects something onto us, which is why when we understand what's yours, that's then when we can say somebody, especially narcissists, which if that's a new concept to you, would very much benefit you to dig into deeper, because so many of us are in relationship of some sort with narcissists who project onto us and make us feel as if it's our problem or it's our fault. When the truth is, oftentimes, we just become the mirror they don't like to look through and want to say their stuff is ours. And if we take it on, we go down that spiral very quickly. Whereas when we can start to understand that just because someone says it's ours doesn't mean it is, and we don't have to take that personally, we can really take our power back and then find our true tribe. Because just because we came through a certain group of people, or we've united with a certain group of people or individuals, doesn't mean we have to give them as much of our time as what we used to, when we realize that we have a limited amount of energetic resources. And if we think of those energetic resources as our team, it's our time, energy, effort, attention, and money that we're ultimately playing with. Our time that we give them, the energy that we give them, the effort that we put into the relationship or the exchange, which is ultimately what it all is, an exchange of energy between us, our attention, which then directs our focus, and then the energy flows in that direction, and the money is ultimately what makes the world go round, or so far as what we have seen it to be, except for if we actually start putting people over profits, that team experience changes, and the relationships that we have in our life change too. Because when people shift out of the old paradigm of needing everything to be about the bottom dollar, and instead can make it about the relationships, such as this opportunity. An opportunity like tonight where we can come together and get to know new people, and we can connect, and we can ask questions. And certainly if you do have any questions, please, I would love to have you share your questions or whatever is going on for you, because all of this means nothing if it doesn't go somewhere. Information doesn't change lives. It's all about how it fits, how it sits, and then what you'll do with the information. So when we can let go of our attachments to the not now moments, my attachment to you having something to say, or to having an opinion, for instance, if we can let go of that need for someone to have a certain reaction or response, which is the creative component of reaction, then we can really actually call ourselves present, which is where our power is, which is why it's another word for a gift. So that question of what are you full of really comes down to who's your tribe, who uplifts and who builds you, and really filling yourself and your life with the uplifters instead of the vampires. It's about understanding what's yours, what's important to you authentically, and when someone's projecting their stuff onto you, it's about saying, no thanks, I don't choose to accept that. And you can do that very cordially. And if somebody says something that they're really wanting to become yours, and they really want to toss their garbage into your inner kingdom, which is a metaphor I often share in my work, you can say, that's interesting, without offending anyone. It's very neutral, but it also makes it so that that projection is not taken personally. And then you love what arises, because once you have the understanding everything happens for us and not to us, then we move out of that experience of powerlessness that victims look up at the world for a persecutor or punisher to hurt them and a rescuer to save them, because everything is on top of them and they can't do it themselves, which is very much the way that socially we're geared towards more than to actually be empowered, because empowerment throughout the ages has actually been a very dangerous thing. Because once we become empowered, we no longer find our identity in the tribe so much as in our own selves, and then everything that's happening for us. So understanding and even giving ourselves permission to feel all of our fear around becoming empowered is very important in the process of actually calling our power back and becoming familiar and friends with our emotions. And then learning how to actually track your breath. That's a tool I wanted to offer just to really help in knowing when you're more in a reactive state. And so there were two exercises I just wanted to offer that could really help you in calling your power back into the present moment through awareness, which is ultimately one of our superpowers. Awareness helps us recognize what's going on. It really helps us understand when somebody else is projecting onto us and we're feeling the fear, or we're feeling the contraction, the constriction, the not being able to speak up, the discomfort of not being the fully expanded version of us that we came here to be. And so in feeling your breath, I'd really just ask you to put your left hand on your heart and your right hand on your belly. And I want you to just take a few breaths. So just breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth 3 times. And I want you to pay attention to which hand moves first. Who had the left hand moving? And who had the right hand? Because the right hand on your belly means that you are in a more grounded, present, less constricted state. Whereas the left hand would suggest you're only breathing from half capacity. And if you're only breathing from half capacity, then essentially your lungs are getting filled, and then you got to push, 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 push in order to get the breath down to the bottom. And so a very easy tool to use is to learn how to breathe yourself down to the bottom first, like babies do. When you watch a baby breathe, their belly rises and then their upper chest, because they didn't get scared and taught to hold it in the way that we as adults have. And so a great practice for you to do just to get yourself more present is to pay attention to where your breath is. And if it's in the upper half, work on pushing your bottom hand out first. Intentionally push it out. Just even in this moment, take a few moments just to breathe in deeply and push it all the way down. And just call yourself back more present. And as you do that, you then create cells of recognition, memory cells within your own body that you can access in those reactive states. Because when we're reactive, we're just doing what we always did, and we're going to get more of what we always got. Whereas if instead we're calling ourselves present and we're choosing to intentionally engage with the language of our soul, which is the breath, the first thing we do, the last thing we do, and the only consistent thing we do throughout our entire lives in between, we have a superpower and we have access to it that we always had access to, we just weren't consciously engaging with it. So when we shift that awareness, then we become far more powerful in our own selves, which means that we can shift ourselves out of those reactive states and get ourselves into more peaceful states faster. There's another exercise that I wrote in here, which is the nervous system connection. And that very much is the reactive and creative brain within our own selves. And it works with the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, which I'm not so much a sciencey girl, even though I would have very much benefited from learning more, and I am doing my best. But I pick up tools that are useful and practical, and it felt very relevant to share this one with you too. Because when we are in the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode of that reactivity, which is the reptilian mind that says it's all about survival, rather than thriving, then we're not able to be creative because we're already charged and it's like, imagine stress being an alarm system that is just blaring on the inside of you, that if you can learn how to breathe yourself present and actually pay attention to where you're breathing from, both here and with the technique that I'll share that I saw, and ironically it was just an advertisement that of a meditation and breathing training program that felt very relevant to it, gave the basic information that I'm going to share. And so take whatever fits, take whatever sits, whatever you can use, and then build on it and make that part of the special practice that can really support you in simply calling yourself back present. And it may sound super simple, but simple is not always easy. So really being graceful with ourselves in those moments too, which, as I said at the beginning, I show up perfectly imperfect, just as the reflection of the fact that the message is found in the mess. And sometimes it takes a bit of age in order to have that message become more clear. And so being graceful with ourselves for where we are, and to know that we are exactly where we're meant to be because everything is happening for us, not to us. And so this technique is actually simply, I want you to actually hold your finger underneath of your nostrils, and I want you to breathe out through your nose, and I want you to pay attention to which nostril is stronger. Which side? Which side was stronger for you? Because the connection, the left brain is actually connected to the right nostril, which was where mine felt strongest. But I'm in a teaching mode, and I may not necessarily feel nervous, but at the same time, there's a lot coming out, and so it makes sense that it would be in more of a stressed or reactive state. But that connection between the right nostril and the left brain is the sympathetic nervous system with the fight and flight. Now, the creative, if it was the left nostril that was working, that's more connected to the right brain, which is your creative brain. And that's your rest and digest. So animals have a great way of being able to reach states of needing to run, like a deer that is being hunted. The deer can run and get away from their predator, and then all of a sudden they're at a safe distance, and then they go back to grazing. It's magic almost, because they don't have that conscious mind that keeps them looping in, are they coming, are they coming, are they coming? Instead, the deer is able to just fully be present and say, okay, they're not here. And if we can actually just learn to pay attention with simple techniques, and that's part of why I brought 2 breathing techniques to you tonight, just call yourself back and understand that when you've got an alarm system going off inside of yourself, you're not going to be able to fully focus on what it is, which in this world where everything is so instant access, especially if you have a job that calls your attention and demands a lot of you, you're going to be in a very stressed state, especially with the chaos of the world that we're all sharing right now. Knowing how to just settle ourselves can really help us become more full of faith in ourselves and the world that we live in, compared to being fearful because we're already in a stressed state that is keeping us out of the moment, where we can enjoy the ones that are there for us and that are there with us. And it's precious to see a little one on the call, because ultimately we're all just big children that have grown up and are in varying stages of development. And there are 4 survival archetypes that we're working with. We've got the child within all of us that's either working from a scared place or that's in a sacred space. And just like creative and reactive, scared and sacred are the same letters in Scrabble too. It's just the positioning of the creativity that shifts whether we're going to be scared or whether we're going to make it a sacred moment where we can grow. There's also the saboteur, which the saboteur is also the part of us that knows how to win. And there is the victim that also is the warrior and the one that knows what we are willing to take a stand for, because we've given our power away enough times that we realize that we'll no longer sell ourselves out the same place as what we used to, which is the fourth archetype most people don't like to admit owning, but that's the prostitute, which is the part of us that knows what we will sell ourselves for, and in the sacred aspect knows what we won't sell ourselves for. So really getting back to the fact that we are as precious as the little one that is in view with us right now, that we have that within our own selves, and that every time we judged ourselves, we were judging her or him within our own selves. And so if it's easy to see a little one, and thank you for bringing her into this moment too, because it's so important. Hello, darling.
Yeah. Hey, say hello. Hello.
Great to have you on the call, honey.
He's supposed to be sleeping.
You say it at 8:44, which if you look at symbolism and the significance of the timing of things, 4/4 is actually a master number. So pay attention to the signs that show up, because anytime there's a duplication of a number, there's a message there, and every number contains power. And so when you see that you have said something, like I even said that at 45:55, when I was pointing out the significance in terms of the time we've been on this call. So I'm going to wrap this up. But just pay attention to everything that shows up exactly when it does, and use the magic of these moments. Because if instead of saying like, oh my goodness, my daughter's not sleeping and I'm supposed to be doing this and all of that and getting into the stress, are we really able to be present enough to help her do what she needs to do? Because she's fully responding to us. So I don't have children personally, but I have many of my own that I've trapped within the kingdom of my own self throughout the years, as do you. And each time we have a toxic barrel moment where we have an eruption of an emotion we didn't deal with in the past, it's just her showing up, or him, the younger version of us, that needs to be acknowledged. And on my YouTube channel, I've got some inner child reintegration processes that I'd love for you to be able to go through into the inner kingdom of you, to find the pieces of you that you said weren't good enough, that you judged, that you denied, and really took out of the moment, so that in the future now moments where you actually have power, she or he shows up and takes you right back into the not now moment where you have no power, which is why that's the L of love what arises, and then let go of our attachment to the not now. Because when we do that, then we can call ourselves back into the present moment and realize how powerful we truly are. And so that's my message for you tonight, and I would love to know if anyone has any comments or questions, feedback.
Awesome. Thanks, Laura, for your time tonight. Does anyone have any questions for Laura? Because great content, and I love those breathing techniques. I think that really brings us to the present moment and helps us to be aware of what state that we're in. Even, Sarah's practicing that with Ellie right now, and when she starts crying, she says, what are you feeling right now? Are you feeling sad? And then when she calls out the emotion, then she says yes, and then she starts to calm down. And it's a really great practice, even starting at that age with that.
That's beautiful. There's a really cool technique as well that I learned when I was working in London, actually, for St. Leonard's, and I was teaching the Peacemakers program in the schools, and it's teaching young people how to handle conflicts and mediate conflicts on the schoolyard with other kids. And so it's a 4-step process that we can all use for ourselves and with little ones and big ones alike, which is basically you listen to what they're sharing, and then you reframe it and say, I think I heard you say. And, well, actually, no, you start with you seem. You seem instead of you are. So that's a big one, because if you tell someone you are this, they're going to automatically be defensive if not. And even if that is the right one, it's like, but yeah, you told me that, and I don't want to be told what I am in this moment. So you seem is far safer than you are, because it takes away the expectation and the projection. So you seem upset, and then, or you seem sad, and then what happened? So asking that open question that lets them open up now that they feel like you are actually with them. Because if you can identify their feeling, they can either say, yes, I am, or no, I'm feeling this. And then they tell you, and you say, oh, okay, well, what happened? And then they tell you, and you reframe it back to them. So you seem sad, and then I think I heard you say this. And if you can reframe it neutrally, so you don't say exactly, they hit you and then you got upset, then you just say, it sounds like there was contact that made you feel uncomfortable, or that something happened and you didn't like it. If you can neutralize it, it really takes that away. And then if you can say, so you seem, I think I heard you say, it sounds like this is important to you. And you can actually identify what's important to them. They really feel valued. And then you can ask them for what they'd like to do moving forward, and you can come up with that problem solving together. So that's just a quick extra if it could benefit you, because the you seem is so key with emotions, and even to take that into how you talk to yourself. So that instead of saying, like, you're this, it's like, well, you seem upset, unhappy. What emotional state are you feeling? So that you're treating yourself as supportively as you would a little one that you love, or somebody else that you love and really want to be present for.
Awesome. Great techniques there. Jeff says, I like the concept said in the beginning, no one can see vision until it becomes reality. It's so true. Very, very true.
Thanks,
awesome. Any other questions or comments?
I would like to thank Laura for sharing the wisdom with us, her wisdom, and just wondering if she can tell us, she mentioned something about YouTube, and maybe I didn't pay attention enough to write it down right away. Do you have a YouTube channel, or just some YouTube's posted?
Yeah, I've got a YouTube channel. It's my name, Laura J.E. Hamilton. So
okay.
If
so we just Google your name and we'll find you. Okay.
You can.
All right.
I've got loads of content on there, and I've actually been working. I've been working with Michael Seegers out of Toronto. He's amazing. He's been studying and learning from the teachings of the Ascended Masters for over 40 years. And so I've been interviewing him and sharing insights that may be of interest to you as well, which falls in line with the faith aspect of things without necessarily having I oftentimes refer to it as the box that we put God into in terms of what our belief systems, what surrounds what we believe in. So it may be alternative, or it may be, I wouldn't say conflicting to your beliefs. I would just say, check it out, see if it's of interest. We just did a video this afternoon that I'm going to be editing and getting up in the next couple of days about the tube of light, which is very powerful in terms of an energy field that we can call on a daily basis to really just help and support ourselves. And it's information and wisdom I was doing by just calling on white light, not understanding that if we can gain access to the tools like we're doing tonight, it helps in a transformative way. And the last video we did was on the violet flame, which is all about transmuting negativity and karma. So very powerful video. and very grateful to be able to be doing that with Michael and posting those to my YouTube channel there. So would love to have you check some of that out, and appreciate the question, Marcus.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any last comments or questions before we sign off for tonight?
I wanted to say something. I really enjoyed, I definitely enjoyed the whole presentation. It was just wonderful. I actually looked into a lot of these spiritual concepts before, because I do see numbers. And I look into like the whole life path numbers just to kind of get a better understanding of myself and the people that I meet. And I think it's just important to look within ourselves, you know, to look at these messages sometimes, not so much based on what we see, right? There's more that goes on. Definitely, you know, it's not all physical, but I'm just glad that I came on this call. I learned a lot, and I will be looking into your YouTube channel for sure.
Amazing. Thank you.
Awesome.
When is the next event being organized? Do you have something coming, you know?
Oh, yes. Go ahead, Laura. I know you have something coming up soon.
January 5th, I'm going to be doing an Inner Child Peace Summit if you wanted to come. So it's going to be on Legacy, and it'll be at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So obviously our time zone, but I say that because we're recording, and so in case if everyone's comfortable with posting the message, I also recorded this so that not everyone was on camera, because I didn't want to make anyone uncomfortable. So I share Eastern Standard Time just because it will be going to a broader audience. But the Inner Child Peace Summit is more tools, and it'll be the 4th one. So there are 3 other ones. I team up with other people that I feel have a lot of value to offer, and they're no sales summits, so you're not going to be pitched to. I feel like right now, during the charged times that we're in, it's more important for people to gain access to the tools that can help strengthen us as individuals and soulful beings. So if that's of interest, please come out on January 5th at 7 o'clock. And Jan, do you have any events coming up in the new year?
Well, we wanted to start up the next U events again with tonight's event. So we thank you for coming on this evening, and we really appreciate your time. And in the new year, we're going to be looking at the end of January to having our next event. But we'll keep you posted on the meetup groups for that.
Beautiful.
Well, thank you guys. I'm looking forward for the next meeting.
Thanks for coming on, Marcus. Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Opry. And thank you, Laura, again, for your time tonight. And so everyone, have a happy and safe holidays ahead.
Yes.
Merry Christmas. Enjoy the time with your loved ones and your family. Stay safe. And we'll talk to you soon, okay?
Thank you for hosting.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
You too. Merry Christmas.
Thank
Bye.
you. You too.
Bye.